for joining us once again in transforming the world through reflections. Tonight, we have an opportunity to hear from someone who has put in many, many miles in guiding youth, young adults, in an academic setting and in more venues than that. I am so thankful to have here with me to jump into this conversation a dear, dear friend, Benny Blades, who is a counselor at Santa Monica and also a fellow Bruin, go Bruins, and with a long trajectory of mentoring and supporting young people in making the most of their strengths and creating a path and thriving. So I'm so thankful that you're here, Benny, and hopefully we can squeeze the juices out of this topic. We're all going through transitions. The pandemic, not over, but some things are opening up, and that includes returning to work in person, returning to school in person, and everywhere has its own challenges, versions of transitioning and creating new ways of functioning and so forth. So as someone who works in an academic setting myself, I can relate to some of these changes, and everywhere is different. I'm curious about what's been on your mind, Benny, around this topic. And thanks again for being here with us.
Well, this is a lot different this year than it was before, because last year, hardly anybody was on campus. Very few people were on campus. Today at San Marco College, we have about 15% of our classes on campus now. And I make a point to go up there once a week on Wednesdays to do work out of my office. And that is also the day we open up our food pantry, and students can come on between 11 and 3 to pick up groceries. We have chicken, we have canned goods, we have bread, we have milk, we have eggs. We never run out of food. So, and we usually have a nice little line. So it's really refreshing also to see students on campus.
Beautiful.
So that's very refreshing.
That resonates with me because it definitely is so different from this long time experience of seeing each other on screen. I feel that is refreshing too, and that so many students, even though this may be their second year, in many ways it's their first year because it's their first year in person, and
Mm-hmm.
wow, to see each other in person, especially if we met on screen, wow. It's an interesting experience. So we're it's almost like learning to walk again in some kind of way, and
That's very different.
yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of community outreach happening on your campus.
Yes, also we have all our fall sports teams are back on campus. They have to follow the campus protocols in terms of being vaccinated or have the weekly, COVID-19 test.
Yes.
So I go on campus, I see a number of students on the field practicing. So the fall sports are back. They are competing with other schools. So that's also looks good. The only building that looks very different is the student services building. In order to get in that building, you have to have an appointment, and they have people outside who are screening you, make sure that you have your COVID-19 vaccination and other stuff, that you fill out a survey before you come on campus.
Mhm.
So everybody who come on campus have to fill out a survey the day before or the morning of.
Yes.
Get approved.
Yes.
But make sure that's taken care of. Then they will allow you to go in the office that you need to go in. Most offices are very few people.
Right.
So I usually walk over there before I leave campus just to holler at a few colleagues.
Yeah. So, you make an important point. Each school has developed their own set of protocols so that we can meet this transition as safely as possible, right?
Yes.
So I see the same thing happening in my experience of returning to work in person, although there is part of my work that is still virtual, you know, but we move little by little in this process. I'm wondering for you, Benny, what challenges have you noticed so far in this moving into the in-person life again?
Well, for me, it's not a challenge, it's excitement.
Mm,
For me to see students on campus, I get to go to my office. So it's really very refreshing. But some of my colleagues, especially at the K through 12 level, they have some serious challenges. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a teacher. She used to teach first grade, now she's teaching middle school. She said during the summer, they only had a few kids in school in the class. It was
mhm.
cleaning the desk every time you look around. But now, rarely does she see somebody cleaning the facility. And she has 36 students in her classroom, and they're on
Wow,
top of each other. Yeah.
that's huge.
And she's talking to some of her other instructors teaching younger kids, like kindergarten, second grade. It's hard to get some of the kids to keep their masks on.
Right.
And so a lot of the instructors at that level are concerned that they can get COVID from their students and take it home to vulnerable loved ones.
Exactly. It is definitely a concern because one thing that we are all learning is that even if you have been vaccinated, you still can uh, get infected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you may be at a lesser risk than someone who hasn't been vaccinated. And when coming in contact, wow, it's difficult. So for a teacher with 30 something children in the classroom, my goodness.
Yeah, she said they're all on top of each other.
Wow.
Because they're a little older, middle
Mm-hmm.
school, they tend to keep their masks on.
Yes.
But the younger kids, like a colleague has, that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
big problems. Kindergarten first graders, they're gonna let the mask come down.
Yeah.
They kindergarten first graders. That's what they
Right.
do.
They're just so excited to see each other,
Yes.
you know.
And they gotta have lunch, and it's a big difference for them.
Yeah.
So they are having more challenges with us. All the very few counselors on campus right now, because when they did the survey,
Mm-hmm.
they found out that the services the students received from the counselor remotely was better than the ones they did in person. And since we have to be directly across from students, there's no big need for us to do it. So a lot of us counselors are not coming back until probably January, somewhere
I
around
see.
there. So the
I
services
see.
we provided has been really good. So that's why.
That's good. That's good. Well, I know from conversations we've had before that you maintain close contact with your mentees, including those who've graduated a long time ago, and
Yeah.
they know that you're a figure that is a cheerleader, a supporter, and they appreciate that. And so I'm curious about what you have gathered from your community of mentees about what this process has been, the transition from virtual to in person.
Well, the biggest thing is they're excited because they get a chance to see their classmates. I'm gonna be on campus at UCLA tomorrow to see a few
Mhm.
students, and they're really excited to see each other and be around us all. Students at the football game on Saturday. There's a lot of UCLA students at the game at the Rose Bowl. So it's almost like things are coming back to normal.
Mhm.
So when I get a chance to go on campus, I'm gonna meet some students. I'm gonna meet a few of the students I interviewed for the UCLA Black Alumni Scholarship.
Mhm.
We give out, $40,000 scholarships.
Wow.
Meet a few of those students tomorrow. I saw
That's
him on
pretty
Zoom,
amazing.
I interviewed him, and I'm gonna get a chance to meet him in person. I think all three of them are from Northern California, maybe two of them are. I get a chance to see him on campus. I'll be on campus tomorrow working remotely.
Wow.
So I sent the email to them, let them know I'll be there. So when they call me, I'll probably be either in Ackerman Union or in Dixon Plaza working somewhere over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna do that tomorrow. So they're excited. They're excited to, and I'm going by the. They got a new Black Campers resource center.
Oh, wow.
Now they have two. They have one in Kirkhoff. So I'm gonna go see the one in. I've been in the one in the dorm a few times.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go see the new one in Kirkhoff. Go by there tomorrow. I might go back there again on Monday. They have an open house. So it's just I can work remotely. I can just work remotely on campus. I'm definitely going by there tomorrow.
It's so nice to hear the names of these buildings, for the Bruins out there hearing us. I am sure it warms their heart to hear the names of these places.
Yeah.
So much history.
Yeah.
So much history.
And I spend a lot of time at UCLA during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I go hiking. And when I went to UCLA, I went hiking a few times. And I went to Botanical Garden for the first time in 30 years.
Wow.
That should be a place I used to do study dates. Botanical Garden, Sunset Rec, and Dixon Plaza.
Yes.
But Botanical Garden I hadn't been there in 30 years, and during the pandemic, they were open from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Wow.
So I will start my hiking from Jan Steps, go to Dixon Plaza, and make my way around to Botanical Gardens, and then come out to Ackerman Union. Mm-hmm. That used to be my route.
Yeah.
Yeah, during the summer. And also people who were coming in town, somehow they got in contact with me, needed a real tour. And all the tours were virtual. So I gave a couple people tours for the campus too.
Beautiful.
So,
beautiful.
Yeah, so
it's a strong community.
Very strong.
So Benny, speaking of community, in this pandemic, we have gotten so creative to find ways to stay connected, especially before there was more freedom to be in certain open spaces like we have now. And so I'm curious to hear from you throughout the pandemic, in your contact with this community of mentees, what was it like to support them through this global crisis? What was that like for you?
Well, it was really good because we got a chance to talk by phone and by Zoom. So I stayed in contact with a number of mentees. I had one who graduated from USC in June. I used to go by the campus once a semester. We have breakfast, and we couldn't do that, in his last year of school. I got a chance to meet, go out to Orange County and have breakfast with him back in July.
Wow.
So, and that was good to see him after, missing him for over a year. That was good. And by the way, his mother was my mentee when she was younger. I met him when he was, a 3-year-old,
Wow.
She's his mother's mentor when she was a single mom, and he was a 3-year-old.
Yeah. Wow. Benny, what a commitment to mentoring. And and it speaks to the power of building these relationships with mentees to the point that you become a mentor to their children. Right?
Yes.
That's deep. That's deep.
I got another mentee who father I recruited to Santa Monica College years ago. And now he's teaching at Long Beach State. He got a master's from USC. And he's an instructor at Long Beach State. And I remember meeting him at Dorsey High School. He was going to apply to some schools. I said, you come to Santa Monica, I think we can get you, you'll be eligible for a lot more good schools. We have a lot more options. And he came and he did very well there. And now his daughter's there. she's transferring. She got accepted to UCLA and USC.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, when she came to one of our events, one of the best events she said she ever attended was the Afro-Latino event.
Yes.
But that was the time that she found out who she really was, and she really found her community. When she was talking to Juanita.
Yes. Well,
her mother's Belizean, her father's Puerto Rican.
For a community that is listening, that to clue them into who and what we're talking about, Benny and I are board members of an organization that we just love. It's called International Society of Black Latinos. So the Juanita that he referred to is Juanita Palacios Sims, the president of this organization. So we have definitely been able to connect with a lot of your mentees that have started to build that Afro-Latino community on campus. Speaking of mentees, I wanna consult further with you about this experience of staying in touch with them through this pandemic. So, because many of them have already graduated, they're fully engaged in their careers, you know, did it come up in conversation that the pandemic showed them new ways of moving forward with their careers?
Yes, it did. I think what happened, a lot of them had to pivot to doing remote working. And in doing that, they discovered a number of things. They had to reorganize their family situation. Some of them had to probably look for bigger places to live.
Yeah.
It became a challenge when you had kids. It became a challenge for the family. But with multiple people trying to use the same Wi-Fi, not all Wi-Fis are strong enough to accommodate, and you start having, Wi-Fi issues. Exactly. So a lot of things happened. People who were staying at home, they weren't getting out, they were picking up weight, just a number of things was happening. A number of things. And I stay in contact with my mentees. I spoke to one in New York. She graduated maybe 15 years from UCLA. I can't remember when it was, but it's been a while. She did not come outside for 2 months during the shutdown in New York City. That's how bad it got. Wow. Now, for some people, I'm dealing with relatives who, I got one cousin who was a long-termer. I mean, COVID lasted for about a year for symptoms. She got it, her husband got it, and her kid. And she suffered a lot as a result. One of the biggest things I'm doing now, which I'm glad I was doing it right before, is sending more students for psychological assistance, therapy.
Yes.
I'm saying I'm making more referrals, I forgot I meant to call you. Hey, she said, I need a therapist. I can pay you.
Oh my goodness.
I need a black therapist.
But
yeah, I'm getting got a lot of people who, one of the biggest thing I noticed is a lot of my counseling is dealing with people who are having problems mentally as a result of the pandemic. Yes. So I'm always sending people to meditation, doing other therapeutic things, talking about other ways to adjust and making referral. I'm doing a lot of that. I had a meeting this evening with my clubs. And I said one of the things I'm going to plan is have the people from Psych Services, got a new name now, do a workshop on some of the things that you can do in terms of making sure your mind is together, like meditation and other techniques. So I said I'm gonna set that up for all the club members. I just got to come up with a date, but she did on our flex days for Falcon and Style, they did one for us, and that was really good. And I've been going to her for a while. I used to refer students all the time to go to meditation, free meditation every Thursday. Just go show up in person. And then once with the Zoom, I was, right before the shutdown, I decided to go myself to check it out. I was blown away. And I almost every week during the pandemic, I was going to that meditation. I sent a lot of students. One of the reasons I send the students too, because it's done by a therapist, So some students they don't want you to send them directly to a therapist. They get turned off. So that's a wraparound. Send them to something like that where they're gonna feel good, and it's done by a therapist. And what the therapist also does, they explain all the other resources they have, and that's how they get them.
Right. Right. It's so wonderful to hear you notice how, the mentees benefit from the resources that you share with them, and that you have also been benefiting from these resources. It's a time that calls for support. We all need support, even as therapists. Everybody needs support. It's a crisis that we haven't experienced in our lifetimes. Our ancestors did. We inherit certain amount of tools, certain forms of resilience, even if we are unconscious of it. But it's still difficult. It's still difficult, just like transitioning back into life in person is challenging as well, because even good stuff takes time to adjust to, especially if it's being done differently. And we ought to be patient with ourselves for that reason, right?
Yes.
Definitely. I'm so thankful that you send students all these resources for them to choose and feel some sort of agency, in their wellness, supporting them in taking initiative. See, Benny, this is why they stay with you for
That's why I'm seeing the kids.
And so, like you were saying before, you notice that the ones that are already professionals found new ways of doing their work, including staying virtual. So on that note, what are your thoughts about the benefits of staying virtual? Or do you think there are benefits to having a hybrid experience? Or what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this?
I think some of the things that we did virtually we need to keep. We had a higher attendance. Like I was talking, I'm on all kind of committees.
I know.
One of the committees are more for students who are on disqualification and probation. We found out virtually we had more students attend workshops than we did when they did it in person. So in person, they ain't got to come up to the campus. They can just do it from their home. So we have a higher percentage of students involved. So I think something like that we need to maintain.
Okay.
More students. Certain things you want to do in person, but I think we need to have a hybrid model for that reason. We're doing conferences. I'm doing a conference tomorrow. It's going to be a statewide conference. And because it's virtual, we can invite more students and we do it at cost.
Right. You can reach more people. That's something that I realized also during the pandemic and all these online experiences. There were several events that I attended or participated as a panelist, where before the pandemic, they would happen only locally. But because of the pandemic, having to do these things online allowed us to reach more people. It allowed us to have an event that typically was local and have it be an internationally reaching event. So here are some benefits of virtual experiences for sure. And professionally, I know colleagues, I have friends who have transformed their work life because they discovered new opportunities that maybe were in plain sight, but because we didn't have to use this, it's not top of your mind. And creativity in difficult times helps us notice other options, right?
Exactly, yes.
So on that note, I would love to hear your wisdom on this next thing. So the world is going through a shift, it seems, because the pandemic is opening many people's eyes about all kinds of issues that have to do with um, marginalized communities, for example, social injustices. So it's not just that professional opportunities are becoming visible, but many things that needed attention are finally getting the level of attention that they need and deserve, right? The world is shifting.
Yes.
The world is shifting. Mindsets are shifting. What are your thoughts on that, Benny? What are
Well,
the shifts that you are noticing?
it's not shifting enough. Because one of the things that we realized that when the pandemic started, marginalized communities were not getting the services that the other uh, communities were given. The death
Exactly.
rate, the number of infections, everything was much worse.
Right.
When the vaccinations came out, we were the last one to get vaccinated.
Right.
One of the biggest mistakes they made when everything was online. A lot of our people in our community
Don't have.
are not technically literate or have access to what it needs to take go online. So that was at a disadvantage. I
Exactly.
remember myself calling certain senior citizens, and they still have dialing phones, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that hit us really hard. So that was one of the issues that came up. The protests helped a lot at the time, but there's been a backlash now, a reaction that's going on because of the president we had at the time. Things have really shifted. People becoming more reactionary, uh, and that has in politics have made a big impact on the pandemic. People are
Yes.
making decisions and taking positions based on political reasons, not scientific reasons.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest problems that we have mainly in this country, and a
Yes.
few others, and also the resources for countries that are poor. They're really suffering right now. I think one of the countries with the highest death rate is might be Peru, one of those countries down, Chile or Peru, one of those countries down there, because they got a outbreak called lambda or something,
Yes.
and it's very difficult for people to um, social distance because about a third of the country don't have refrigerators. So they have to go out almost every day to get food. So they don't have places to store it. So because of it, it's hard for them to social distance properly.
Yeah.
They don't have the medical facility. They don't have a lot of vaccines.
Yes.
So the death rate in that country is really high. It's really high.
Benny,
And that's one of oh, go ahead.
I thank you for including in this reflection the experience of other countries, because so frequently um, one can hear people focus mainly or only on their own community, or just, I mean, and in many ways it's just natural because this is where you live, that people would focus only on, the experience of the country where they're living or their community, um, in certain conversations. But it's so important to remember that in other countries, this is happening, and certain situations are specific to each country. The way they're navigating safety, the way they're navigating resources or lack thereof.
Exactly.
Yeah, the global.
Like countries like Cuba had to come up with their own vaccines because trying to get resources as a result of the embargo is making it difficult for them to receive a lot of medicines and other things from the country. They had to come up with their own vaccine.
Right. Yeah. So what are shifts? To continue on this topic of the shifts, what are shifts that you really hope that our local community as well as our international community move towards because of the pandemic?
Well, I hopefully, because people see that how vulnerable everybody, every community is, and that the fact that very few communities have not been immune to what has happened. Hopefully, people be more empathetic about the plight of others.
Mm.
Um, you know, when you start looking at resources in terms of services, make sure
Yes.
that the communities that are suffering and don't have, are then taken care of. Right now, the people, the more privileged you are, the more resources you get, and that's where the highest number of vaccines were. That's where you had everything that was positive that was
Yes.
expected was
Yes.
impacting those communities. We had to do at Kedron, had to have certain targeted dates to try to get people of color and poor people out. We had a Greek day, we
Mhm.
had a day Afro Latino day, to try to get people out,
To get people out.
get these communities out. Yes, in
Yes.
order to make up ground for when the vaccines came that we playing catch up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and also we need to always look internationally. There's a lot of countries that don't have vaccine, very
Exactly.
little vaccine, and they're struggling.
They're
So even though
struggling.
we focus on ourselves, we do have a high death rate in this country because of COVID-19. That has a
Mhm.
lot to do with policy that not resources. We need to see what we can do to help others. And I
Yes.
think what this pandemic has, hopefully the shift would be to assist others who don't look like yourself. The t-shirt I had on earlier for my meeting was called "Make a Friend That Don't Look Like You. You Might Change the World."
Mm.
And I wear that to my club meetings all the time. So to send a
Yeah.
message to students, I always tell students, it's important that you get to know somebody that don't look like you. It's really
Yes.
important.
Beautiful.
Otherwise, you start thinking about people, what you know about people based on stereotypes and generalizations.
Yes. Yes. You share such a beautiful message that could so transform our world. Empathy, uh, meeting and getting to know someone that doesn't look like me, you know, helping helping others. And wow, an impact it would have if more people moved in the world that way with that mindset. So as I'm listening to you, I'm gathering that your hope is that there's a shift in mindset,
Yes.
a shift in mindset that could be powerfully transforming. And sadly, a situation as serious as this pandemic that has caused many people to lose their lives um, uh, is the platform for this shift to happen. But at the same time, it's giving us pause. It's inviting us to pause.
Another thing too that you saw a lot of people helping others. Yeah, people going, donating food, going to food giveaways,
Yes.
restaurants giving away free meals to first
Yes.
responders and others. So
Yes.
you saw more people serving others. I think hopefully that shift will continue. One of the things that I like to quote is service to others is the rent that you pay for living on earth.
Yes.
I can't remember. A number of people said that, Muhammad Ali, a few other people, but I love to use that quote.
Yes. That's a quote that I love also. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Benny, you and I could talk for hours. Oh my goodness. I am so thankful that we have had this opportunity to chat, think out loud together. And you have given the community that's listening to us a lot of rich stuff to chew on. You know, may the shift indeed be more empathy, like you said, more generosity, more openness to learn about others, get to know about others. Yes, yes. This seems like the right spot to end our reflection, you know, and invite folks to reflect on it after they end listening to us. So I thank you again, Benny. Thank you so much. May we continue transforming the world through reflections.